out there? How's it going? Welcome to Screen Speak. This is Jordan Anderson. I run this podcast. I host it. I talk into a microphone and you listen to it sometimes or never. I don't really know. You could be a first-time listener, existing listener. I don't really care. You're here, and that's why I am pleased. And it's actually timely that we're talking about this episode today. My Octopus teacher is what I'm going to be rambling about today on the podcast, this interesting documentary from 2020, but I won't be alone. I have with me once again, Adam Wall, Sofia, Haan. They apparently liked Octopus and documentaries about octopus, but they were actually really happy. They really wanted to come on to this episode and talk about this. So welcome the both of you.
What's up, Jordan?
I love octopuses. Octopuses are the bomb, dude.
The bomb.
Octopi.
Is that like the plural of it? Like octopi?
I
don't
up.
know.
I looked it up right before we went on, and apparently octopi was like the original plural, like in Latin, but then octopuses is like the English. But that sounds so bad, just ugly. So pick your poison, whatever you want to say.
I don't think I have many thoughts to unpack about Octopus, this documentary in general, but I will say on the subject of octopus, do I know much about them? No. I know that they have tentacles and that they
8 of them.
There's 8 and they swim around the ocean, and I think there's different, like any species, I think there's different variations of them. And
Probably.
I've heard there's like the one, there's like that one really huge one that like lives like deep in the ocean where like it's only been captured on camera like 5 times or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No,
I think those are squid, I think, specifically.
Is that a different thing? A squid?
Is that the same?
No, they're probably not. I'm sure some
The Kraken.
I'm sure some marine biologists are listening to this and they're just getting disgusted that I don't know the difference between an octopus or a squid.
That is the core Screen Speak demographic, is marine biologists.
Most definitely. But hey, maybe this will reach them. Like, I don't know if there's any podcasts out there where people have talked about this documentary yet. So who knows?
Never.
I don't know. It would be cool. I would talk to a marine biologist.
I feel like they would have a lot to say.
Yeah.
The
guy was a marine biologist, the guy from this movie. I
don't think he was. I don't think he was. I think he wanted to be, or he thought he was, but I don't think he actually was.
No, because I looked up this dude's background, Craig Foster, and his Wikipedia title says that he's a filmmaker. He's a South African documentary filmmaker. Oh, and a naturalist, as if that's a title. But he is also the founder of the Sea Change Project, which that's something that we can talk about once we kind of pick apart some of the key specifics in this documentary. But to go back to the marine biologist thing, I don't think Craig is a marine biologist. I just think he liked to swim a lot, and he went out to the sea, enjoyed swimming with the kelp, and eventually found his love in the form of an octopus.
That he never named. He never named that octopus. If you loved it so much, why did you not name it?
I was actually going to bring that up because that was a curious fact. Throughout the entire thing, he has that one part where, I feel like I should get this out of the way first. I'm not going to just solely make fun of this documentary, even though there's plenty of things that are a bit eccentric, goofy.
It is easy.
There is some easy material there, but there is some actual like substance to it that I enjoyed, and I walked away from it with some good thoughts besides just like, man, this guy really loves his octopus. Okay, but I want to start with just both of yours initial thoughts on this documentary. I mean, how did you find it? Because Adam is the one who told me to watch this.
So me and Sofia I like documentaries a lot, honestly. So I've always wanted to watch more documentaries, and we've been kind of on a binge of watching more recently. But I've heard really good things about this one specifically. Like, I remember when it came out, there was a lot of buzz around it, but I never saw it. So I knew this movie existed for a while now, but I never actually sat down and watched it. And we were just hanging out one night and we wanted to watch something that was really pretty and beautiful. And that's why I was like, oh, dude, we got to try out this octopus teacher thing. And it turned out to be a lot more than that, but like the movie as a whole was like unbelievably beautiful, and like it was. I just really wanted to watch a good documentary. I've heard things about this movie, and not necessarily all good things. Let me know, but I've heard a lot of things about this movie. So that's kind of how I found it, and it honestly, like, yeah, that's.
Yeah, because when we were looking up documentaries, a lot of them were like, let's talk about the Russian doping scandal, or like really intense stuff. And we're like, let's just watch something that's fun and nice, and not like, I don't know. We can talk about like that whole theme within documentaries too later, but
Yes.
let's just watch something that's enjoyable and pretty and what, like a very classic documentary kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was.
Well, nature documentaries, I feel like, have a natural appeal towards people, like you said, like yourself, that maybe don't want to watch a documentary on the rise of Vladimir Putin, or want to see what's going on in Ukraine, or want to see like how white supremacists are taking over the Capitol. Like these are all
Yeah.
like, very, very serious topics. So yes, nature, I feel like, is like a good neutral place for a lot of people, where it's like, hey, I can get on board with watching animals, and I like them. And then you usually learn something about their environment too, and just kind of remind you that the world is a really big place and has a lot of other things going on besides human beings being awful to each other.
Yeah, and this movie was very similar to like something like Planet Earth. Like it was much more like internally focused on one specific dude and one specific octopus. So it was much different and kind of a breath of fresh air to that like environmental documentary genre, I think, where it was much more telling a story and like talking about a specific animal than just like talking about a biome as a whole. And
Yeah.
I think there's pros to like learning about just the biome as a whole, but I think there were specific things in this documentary that were really brought out in the fact that he was just in this one very niche environment with a very niche animal that not many people have like heard about or like thought
Yeah.
about really. You know, I don't know.
Well, I think from what I could tell, at least from his version of events, is like he did not just, start going out there swimming one day being like, I'm going to make a documentary about an octopus. It
Yeah.
didn't seem like it was part of his plan. I think he says at the beginning of the documentary that he does have his background in filmmaking. He's from South Africa. He had spent some time initially early on with trackers, animal trackers, I remember him saying, and that he was like really fascinated with that. But then he just sort of seemed to not really be interested in things after that. It sounded like he had like a period where he's just like, nothing inspires me anymore. I don't know. Like, like his life had no meaning, I guess.
Yeah.
But he
Kind of super
apparently,
burnt out.
yeah. I mean, which, hey, like people do definitely get burnt out. I can understand how that feeling can manifest, but
It was a very like he brought a lot of human aspects, I think, as well that you don't really see in environmental documentaries, where it was jarring that it was about this dude I didn't know anything about or really cared about, but it kind of, I think it made the relationship with him and the octopus a lot more like stronger because he was able to bring the human element into it, and like the fact that he's just another dude and he found this octopus in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know,
yeah.
but we should go over what the movie is about because maybe some people haven't seen this movie.
This is true. This is true. Okay, so I have it pulled up here. The synopsis is honestly kind of humorous to me a little bit. Let
Let's
me
hear it.
let me get it up here. So it's very short. It just says it says it right here. Okay. My octopus teacher. The story of My Octopus Teacher tells the story of Craig Foster, a filmmaker that begins diving in a kelp forest off the coast of South Africa and meets a female octopus who casts a spell on him. That's
female.
Like
ladies.
That's why I was like, hey, there's no way I'm gonna be able to read the synopsis without being like, okay, we gotta pause here. It's a female octopus. There's a spell. What kind of a spell?
That
What
was
does that mean?
I was reading some like film criticism about it, and there was one person that was like, yeah, he kept gendering this octopus and he made it like he needed this like female octopus to be his like therapist and all of this. And I was like, okay, well, you're just expanding this a little too far than it needed to be, maybe. But like, it was just at certain points, that man was a little too in love with that octopus.
He
That's all
got
I'll say.
he got close with it.
He got close.
For sure. I know, like, when I think I had sent Adam like a humorous message on Snapchat before
You
where
played that for me.
well,
Yeah.
because I couldn't help but think throughout it, because he's like, what if that idea came to me where I will go and visit her every day and swim? And then eventually, he's doing that. I'm like, that's great. But then, like, his son kind of comes into the picture, which they never really give him any time. I guess he's just there. But you don't see a mother, you don't see a wife, you don't see a partner. So I was like joking with Adam. I'm like, well, he probably just got too into this octopus and was just like, I don't need you anymore. I have the octopus.
An
She
octopus.
doesn't judge me. She lets me spend as much time with her. I don't have to like pay my bills with the octopus, or I don't know. But yeah, he was very much into that octopus for sure. What are some moments from the documentary that stuck out, or that struck the both of you, I guess? Like, was there anything where you're like, oh, like that was really interesting, or that's super weird?
I think maybe it's just top of mind because we finished the documentary 45 minutes ago. But when the shark was like going after it and he finally puts together like, oh, okay, when the octopus grabs all those shells, it kind of surrounds itself as a barrier. That's what I saw the first time I went diving and kind of started this whole quest. And when the octopus just like hauled its ass out of the water, I was like, excuse me, it can do that? It
Yeah.
can just leave? It was
Oh, yeah.
insane. I think that was probably the most interesting to me, because I think that was the most like core nature documentary part of it,
Mhm.
because you're seeing like the power of this animal and then ingenuity of this animal, and the way that it was just like problem solving and fixing, living and adapting to its environment in real time in a way that like I've never seen before. I can't go out to the Mississippi and see an octopus do that. So being able to, I don't know, seeing the way that he had it and like the quality of camera that he had, it was just astounding.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of praise I would actually give to the patience I think that it would take to gather all that footage, and not only gather it, but just to like make a cohesive narrative out of it and like piece it all together, because God knows how much editing they probably had to do to get the perfect footage and string it together and make the story. But then just from the side of the octopus too, I mean, I'm sure studies on that animal are still very much ongoing. I'm sure there's a lot of things to be learned about it. And I think that there were some articles I even read that said that because of the work that he did, that they learned new things about the animal. Or do I call it an animal or a fish? Like, what do I call it? A mammal?
It's neither of those.
Is it just, yeah,
It's
like I don't
it's a
know.
cephalopod.
A cephalopod. Okay. Thank you, Adam.
You have to
I
say
don't-
'cause it's-
cephalopod every single time.
Yeah,
Aquatic
the-
creature would also work, I think, because it's like nothing like that. I mean, that's a really cool thing about octopuses, though. It's like it's definitely not a fish, but it's
No.
also definitely nothing like that what is on land either at the same time. It's just like its own thing,
No.
somehow living.
I think they're pretty wild creatures. And yeah, there's just things about their behavior that like just kind of blow your mind. Like with, like, Sophia, you talked about her, the seashell thing where like he just, oh my gosh, she is gathering up stuff to protect herself from the shark. Like that was really cool. The camouflage stuff, of course, is cool too, being able to like adapt to the environment. I know the two things that stood out to me for its behavior was one where he's like, eventually she started walking on her legs. Like
That was so
like they
funny.
would just have like one or two of them and just kind of like trotting around. I was like, they do that? Like what?
She was strutting her stuff. It was great to watch.
I had no idea that they did that. And then I think the part that you referred to where it shot up out of the water and it's just like just
Yeah.
walking around on the rock. I'm like, is it gonna get back into the water? Like,
That
I
was
don't
my thing. I
know.
was like, does it dry out? It was insane. I've never seen it, and I've never heard that an octopus could do that. And it
Right.
just did. It was insane.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that it could do those types of things. And I also didn't know about just some of the ways that it could like outsmart its prey, whether it was like hiding inside of a rock, I think at one point, isn't it riding the shark's back?
Yeah. And I was like, excuse me?
um, one part that was sad, of course, though, is when it has the near fatal accident where it loses one of its arms.
Oh my gosh,
The
dude,
mud
yeah.
shark gets it or whatever, and like it just like flies off. You're like, oh my gosh, but then it grows
Yeah.
back.
No, yeah.
Hooray
Well, like
for
the
regeneration.
mud shark attacks are so like it's kind of what I expected to be, but they're so aggressive because the shark is just like
Yeah.
twisting, and then the octopus just goes full like ragdoll mode basically. So she's just like being flung around, and the it's just spinning around. It's
Oh.
so like scary looking, and like I'm like impressed that the shark is able to do that so effectively. And like you kind of have a lot of respect for the sharks too. Like he kind of paints them out to be the bad guy, which they should be because the octopus is sick. But like not necessarily
bad.
painting them to be the bad guy because like, you know, it's like all part of the natural wonder of like they're a predator. They got to kill the animal so they can survive at the same time, you know. But I thought the shark attacks were really well done. And it kind of goes a little bit to his filmmaking ability, I think, of just being able to get really good shots of the shark like
Oh yeah.
predatory in the water, and then shot of the octopus just being like scared, trying to run away from the situation. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the just kind of like the way he did filming as a whole. I don't know if it like a lot of the events he was talking about like happened in real time, but I feel like he had so many different angles and he just so perfectly displayed like the event that is going on when it's just him in the water with a camera by himself. Like it was almost confusing to me to like understand how he's able to do like show this picture of a shark chasing an octopus so well, because
Mhm.
there's just so many different angles and how he's able to show the shark like slithering along, listening and hearing for the octopus, and the octopus like hiding in the kelp and like running away as fast as he can. It was so well portrayed where you understood everything that was going on, and in such a beautiful setting too. I thought it worked so well. Like he is definitely a filmmaker by trade, because I think that is probably the strongest part of the movie for me, is just being able to see this octopus in its own space, and it's just so well edited together in so many different shots, and being able to see the life of the octopus. It's nuts. It's a really good movie in that sense.
I think with the filmmaking thing too, I did see like there's no way that he didn't have other people with him. He made it seem like I'm a free diver. I go by myself. No, I'm sorry. There's no way. There's no way. Like
Yeah.
he didn't like say that there was there's no way that there
Maybe
wasn't.
he's just that awesome, dude.
He's
I don't
that he's
know.
that strong of a swimmer that he was like poo, 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 and he was just like swishing around on the other sides of the there's no way that he didn't have another person there like following along with a camera on the other side.
Yeah.
I feel like what probably happened is that I think the project started out organically, and I really do think it was just him for a while at least. But then I think as he started to get more momentum behind it, I think he started to see that this thing actually might have some merit to it. There's a story to be told here. There's something to gain from this. I don't know how he exactly did it, but I have to imagine he obviously contacted probably other people he used to work with back in his South Africa film, animal tracking days.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's some shots that are like, okay, if you're like trying to hold your breath, you're snorkeling, you got no equipment on, you're just like, I don't believe in tanks. I just
Yeah.
believe in having really big lungs. I'm like, I'm with Sophia. I think there's probably a couple of people. Otherwise, why would there be even any credits in the movie? If it was
Yeah.
just him, it would just be like, I did the entire thing. Like,
There are a few shots too, specifically of him holding the octopus. And you're right. How do you get
How
that
did you
shot
do
without
that?
someone else being
Yeah.
there, kind of thing? No, that makes sense.
My only other thought, I guess the camera like followed the shark, because my only other thought was that he set up like stands, like tripods, like throughout the kelp forest and set up cameras, maybe because they
Yeah.
talked about setting up a camera, and that's when the octopus first came up to it and like latched onto it and knocked it over.
mhm.
So maybe he did that, but like that's thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment. You wouldn't just leave that in the bottom of the ocean and be like, hope this works.
Yeah, no, I would be very curious to hear how they actually did orchestrate the entire thing, because I mean I believe the guy's talented, but yeah, I don't think he pulled this off on his own. No way. Now I have one thing I want to talk about, because we've mentioned kelp a couple of times and the octopus touching him and things like that. I just want to hear from the both of you what you think about like touching things underwater and like in the ocean, because I can tell you me, like I get weird when a butterfly touches me.
Oh, you're scared of butterflies?
Well, I don't know if well, is scared the right word, or I just
This is
get
a safe space,
weird.
Jordan. You can say if you are.
Well, safe space, but and everybody's
And
whatever.
all the marine biologists listening.
Yeah, I get kind of yeah, sure. I'm scared of butterflies. Yeah. Scared of
Respect.
butterflies, scared of dragonflies, scared of anything basically with wings that's willing to touch me. I don't like
Paperiness
it.
of the wings.
I don't know about that. I think it's just the touching. Like
Yeah.
if it was flying around just being beautiful, like that's great, but don't touch me. I don't need you to touch me.
I agree wholeheartedly, because that's why I'm not afraid of spiders at all. Like you can see
No.
if there's a giant spider in a room, like it's in his space. He's not gonna fly in my face. He's not gonna attack me. I know where he is. I know if he walks around. But if there's like a dragonfly or a bee or something like that, they just fly in your face and they're in your ear. It's just I hate it, dude. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jordan. I don't like things that fly. I'm fine with
No.
butterflies. Don't tend to do that as much, and they're much more fluttery. So it's less aggressive than like a bee or a fly in your face. But you're right. I
Well,
don't really like things that fly in my face. It's not fun.
but even if like I don't like some of the things like touching me and things like that, I might just be weird about being willing to touch things. Cause like there's shots of him swimming in that kelp, and I'm like, that kelp, like I don't want to touch the kelp. Ew. Like get it
That
away.
was my thought too. We were talking about that, and I was like, maybe it's just in my head, but the sliminess that I associate with kelp, just like touching my bare skin,
Yep.
would send me off an edge.
I think
would just-
we're used to kelp like in like really dirty rivers and lakes in the Midwest.
That's true.
And it's
Or
like
like washed up on a beach.
yeah, there's no worse experience when you're like swimming and then all of a sudden just like a piece of like slimy kelp touches your ankle and you're like,
And you're
oh
like, Jesus
God,
Christ.
stop, please. It's gonna
That's
bring me
true.
under. So like I feel like we're much used to that. Maybe in South Africa, like based on maybe it was just the way it was filmed, but it seems to be pretty like calm kelp as a whole, where it's
That's a
like
good
and maybe
point.
it's because he was pretty far underwater, so you could see the stalks, so you
Yeah.
can see how it actually like
In that
it's like
crystal
basically
blue water.
yeah, and like super clear water, where maybe it's a little less scary because of that, but maybe not.
But see, it goes past the kelp. It goes beyond the kelp because there's it's like a whole ecosystem down there. There's like coral, and then there's like squishy things that are alive that like live on the coral. There's
Yeah.
mud sharks. I mean, hell, the octopus alone, like when it reaches out and touches him for the first time, I'm like, hey, like I realize that this is cool, but I don't know if like like if it's wrapping around me, I'd be like, ugh. Like it's just
Well,
it's just
yeah.
slimy.
And I was reading him, he did like an interview and someone asked him what that suction cup felt like. And he was like, it was kind of strong. And he was like, I would have to go out for a breath and I'd have to like kind of pry it off of my body. And I was
Yeah.
like, no.
Speaking
What
of
if it doesn't come off?
well, speaking of prying off the body, do you think that in the back of his mind when he was having that really cool moment where he's like, it grabbed onto me and then it didn't let go, and I just
Oh, it
kept
was like
floating
sitting like a
up.
baby.
Well, no, like it was wrapped around his arm, remember? Because he's like, he's just floating up. He's like, I had to get breath, but the octopus came with me. And I
Oh,
was like,
that's right.
dude, I'm like, you wanted it to stay with you the whole time. You were hoping.
Oh yeah, dude.
Mhm.
I mean, if I try to put myself in his eyes a little bit here, like imagine like how much that would change your life and your mindset on things if you
That's
were like
true.
if there was just an octopus on your hand and it like likes you or
Yeah,
like it
'cause it
respects
clearly
you
does
enough to
like
hang out
him.
with you. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
I would like I think people shit on the aspect of like him being like, oh my God, he doesn't care about his family or anything like that. And all he cares about is a stupid octopus that doesn't matter. And he only just like accepts that he's there. But if I was him, I would be out there every possible moment I could if I could hang out with that octopus. And the fact that you could see it over and over again, they have a relationship like that would be just absolutely nuts. Like I having a relationship with a wild animal, I've never had an experience like that, but I'm sure it must be like an unbelievable experience. And like
Yeah.
around here we have things like deer, which are just like, okay, it's a deer. It's like cool, sort of, but there's just millions of them. We see them all the time. They just run around, eat grass. But octopus is just like a completely different, like alien thing. And then you have this wild animal relationship with it and it respects you and understands that you're a wild animal too and you're just like in its space a little bit. I don't know, dude. That would be absolutely nuts. So I I with the first half of the movie, I feel like he kind of more just shoehorned in the whole like being like bringing my son on, and me and my wife don't have a good relationship. And at the start, it's really jarring because you're just so focused on like the octopus and the beautiful footage of it, where
Yeah.
you just you have to make fun of it. You're just like, this is stupid. This is dumb. Why are you? I don't care about you. I care about the octopus. But I think honestly, the last like 10 minutes of the movie really brought a lot more of it together. Of like him talking about how it like just completely changed his mindset on his life, and like
Yeah.
being able to then like I sort of see it with like whenever I do something like going camping or going off in the wilderness, I don't have nearly the experience he has, but I sort of like kind of understand his mindset of like nothing else matters. Like my life is meaningless. Everything that I stress myself out about, whether it be bills or jobs or relationships with people, all that shit doesn't matter because I'm just a wild animal living out here. And he must have had just such that feeling. And it must be, I don't know.
Well, I think there's something to say about I mean animals in general as like to what you can learn from them because they don't, they don't hold grudges against people. They're not judging people. Their existence in some people's eyes, I guess, would be maybe defined as simple because it's like eat, don't get killed, go to sleep,
Yeah.
eat.
Do it again. Yeah.
Like do it again.
Rinse, repeat.
Right. But I did like that the guy was able to, sort of talk about how because he was spending all this time with the octopus, he was able to, start noticing that he was thinking about his relationships with the people around him differently. Um, and ultimately for the better. Like I don't know if he was like an a-hole before, and then like the octopus was like, wow, okay, maybe I should be nice to people now, and then he's like, okay, like the octopus is cool. But I liked how he said that it would that the whole thing was just affecting his view on people as a whole.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever experienced like that level before. I mean, I've had a great relationship with a cat, Waffles, rest in peace.
Waffles. Rest in peace, Waffles, dude. I loved Waffles.
Yeah, sad.
Have you talked
sad.
about Waffles yet on the podcast, Jordan?
I don't know if I've talked. Well, I don't know. Not probably not. No.
We should do Could we do a tribute to Waffles quick? I have
Sure.
a story about Waffles. I
Yeah.
love Waffles so much, dude. Waffles
So-
is
Yeah, I was gonna say add some context to it.
yeah. Go ahead.
Not-
You go ahead. You had the context. You know the cat better than I do.
Not the food Waffles, but I had a cat named Waffles. He lived for 18, 19 years close to. Pretty
Damn.
pretty old cat. He got his name from the classic film that nobody cares about called Kangaroo Jack. It's with Jerry O'Connell and Anthony Anderson. It's a pretty bad movie, but he has Anthony Anderson has a dog in the movie named Waffles, and I just thought that was so funny. So when I got this cat, I named it that after the movie. And he's
How-
this little yellow tabby cat, but that's the cat.
How old were
That's
you
really
when
on
you got
brand.
Waffles?
I was 13.
13? Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so he stuck with me till 31. So
Yeah, dude.
pretty
That's
crazy.
crazy.
He was an
Yeah.
old, I only really met him when he was like 15, so I've always known him as an old cat. Just kind of like
It's
didn't give a
true.
fuck and just hung out.
You
But
said you had a story about
did.
him.
Yeah, I want to hear the
I-
waffle story.
Waffles is like such a chill cat, but he's not a chill cat, and like some cats are just kind of like fuck you, I want to do what I want sort of thing. But Waffles very much loved intimacy, and it was a very characteristic of Waffles that I didn't see with a lot of other cats that I absolutely loved. Like I remember sometimes when we like I'd hang out with Thomas, who is Jordan's brother, sometimes, and we would like
Sometimes.
yeah. Well, I hang out with Thomas
Selectively.
selectively. He is Jordan's brother, and like I would like stay the night at their parents' place, and like I'd be sleeping on the couch, and like 2 a.m. in the morning, Waffles would come up and like want to snuggle with me. Like, oh, Waffles, you could snuggle with me, man. So like I remember one night specifically, I was sleeping on the recliner chair, and he comes up and he wants to snuggle. I'm like, yeah, you can come snuggle with me, Waffles. And like after like 10 minutes, he just starts vibrating like very, very aggressively from purring. And I'm just like sitting there like, oh, that's kind of cute. And then after like 2 minutes, he just does not stop. And I'm like, all right, Waffles, you gotta get off, man. I can't sleep here. Like I love that kid.
No, he absolutely loved people, and he was
Yeah.
like very good with people. Loved to, as Adam says, like just cuddle with people. He had an intimate side to him.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I mean, shit, like when my beard was like really bushy, he would like lick it and clean it a bunch to like try to like just, but like sometimes it'd be terrible because I'd be like trying to sleep and he'd still be going at it, just like
Oh my god.
licking away. And I'm like, hey, like, man, I love you, buddy, but I gotta sleep. Like, get out of here. And then like if his breath stunk from eating cat food, it's like, oh. But no,
Nice.
yeah, it's sad, but I don't know. I'm kind of weird. I don't know, but weird's not the right word, but it's almost like with people, if someone or something lives a really either a long time or just in my eyes has a full life,
Yeah.
it's like you're sad that they're gone, but at the same time, I don't want them going until they're old and decrepit and they're terrible. Like
Oh yeah.
I want them to have a good life. And I'm more appreciative that I even got to experience being with them. And it's like I'm sad they're gone, but I'm also happy that they completed their life cycle, I guess. So
Yeah. Waffles lived a great life and he was a great cat.
it's true. It's very true. Now,
Waffles.
RIP Waffles, you are the best.
Send one up.
What?
Send one up. Send
Send-
a prayer.
I thought
Send up a prayer for waffles.
well, I thought for a second I thought like sun one up was like a like young people code for like have like a Corona to waffles, like like
you could do that
like,
too.
pour one out for him. I don't
For the
know
bullet.
what that means. Okay, so I want to go back to the octopus because I guess this ties into it a little bit. The octopus does not live. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
She eventually passes away, which that whole segment I actually thought was beautiful because I didn't really know like how they basically apparently there's a male octopus around, which they give like no real mention to that before. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's just like towards the end, they're just all of a sudden like, and then this male showed up and impregnated her. I'm like,
It made
where
it
was
seem
this
like
guy at?
it made it seem like it appeared just for that, and then it left.
And maybe he did.
I mean, that's I think that's what male octopuses do. They probably just like roam the ocean and then they find a female octopus and they're like, oh yeah,
There you go.
nice. And they get on and they leaves. But
I don't think they didn't show any footage of that, right?
I don't
You
think
want an
the
octopus
actual
porno, Jordan?
yeah. How do octopuses have sex is the question.
I just imagine that it. I mean, this is so dumb, but I imagine that like I don't know, it probably just shows up, like lays on her, maybe just like wriggles around a little bit, and then it leaves. I don't think there's anything elaborate to it.
I think all underwater species, it's like they're two separate tasks where it's like the female lays the eggs and then the male goes like yoink on top of the eggs.
Yeah, that's
I
what it
think-
was in Finding Nemo, right?
I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everything I learned about the ocean was from Finding Nemo. So
It's a great movie.
Was there an octopus in Finding Nemo? I'm trying to
no,
remember.
but there
the
was
second
a fish
one.
laying eggs. What?
Well, no, in Finding Dory, there's an octopus. That's the main.
Oh.
It's one of the main characters. But
I
yeah,
blocked that movie out of my mind.
Finding
Yeah.
It
Dory.
was
I
bad.
I thought it was all right, but I mean, I don't know. I think I've only seen it in the theater like once when it came out, and like a
Yeah.
lot of people, I was like, well, this is all right, but it's not Finding Nemo.
It's like the same as like Monsters University. It's in that
Oh.
sphere of like
Yeah.
sequels to a movie that was really good. And it wasn't like a bad movie necessarily. It felt more like a DreamWorks movie.
Hey, so I
Yeah.
think I hang on real quick. I think I have to send you guys another Zoom invite because for some reason, like I'm not in like a premium one where it's gonna record it the whole time. It says there's less than 1 minute.
No.
So
I did see that. Yeah.
okay, I'm
There's
gonna
34 seconds
stop.
left.
I'm gonna stop this. I'll edit it and then I'll send you guys another invite. Okay.
All right. Perfect.
Sounds good.
Yeah. let's do it.
Technical difficulties. All right, we're back. I apologize to the audience for that. I think that's a first for Screen Speak where I've had to do like a mid edit through the episode because of not having enough time on Zoom. So, oops.
Oops.
Do
That's just
either...
an opportunity for an ad break. Advertisers
Oh,
get
that's
on
true.
Screen Speak.
That's true. Advertisers get on Screen Speak. I'm shameless. I'll plug anything. You want me to plug like sea snake oil or something? Sure. I'll do
it.
that.
Yeah, man.
I shouldn't say anything because then some weird advertiser is gonna crawl out of the woodwork and be like, "Hey, I heard you like will do anything."
Trojan
Raytheon.
condoms. Raytheon.
No. Okay. I'm trying to remember, where were we at? Do either of
I
you?
wanted to go back to when we were talking about him like touching things in the water.
Yes, because I'm weird about touching things, and it sounds like you guys are not 100% on board with just touching everything.
See, but the place that I come from of not wanting to touch things is more like, I feel like if you are just a human living your life, you shouldn't go into like a natural space like that and just be touching things. You are bringing all sorts of other things into that environment that exists just fine and very well without you. Don't be touching things, because like I just remember being a kid and going to like science museums, and they're like, you need to be very careful when you touch this thing, or you need to wash your hands with this special stuff before you touch the stingrays, because you have like oils on your fingers and you have all this other stuff that you're bringing into the water, and it's like you could harm these animals because you're not supposed to be touching these things.
It's true.
That was my thing, because he was like stroking fish at the end of it. And I was like, please stop. What are you doing?
Well, I think
Oh my God.
it's really important to like, I feel like especially when people go into nature, I feel like that's a thing that people need to be hammered into, because your instinctive tuition is like, oh my God, look at this tree. I'm gonna touch this tree.
Yeah.
Pretty things. And it's like, if everyone does that, then it just fucks everything up. So yeah, that's a good point. And I feel like it wasn't something that was addressed in the documentary very much, that I feel like probably should have been addressed a lot more. And maybe he just doesn't care. I don't know about this project that he has, if they talk about it there. But I feel like conserving places like that is of the utmost importance to our society. And I think it's something he didn't really talk about very much in the movie that he really should have brought up, especially with what he was doing with touching the octopus.
Yeah.
And like the octopus touched him more than he touched it. Like he definitely left it. But I think it's a very important point that needed to be brought up a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he did a good job of letting the octopus come to him before he wasn't just like, come here, he let the octopus, he put out his hand to let the octopus know that he was open and vulnerable to it. He wasn't trying to attack it.
Mm-hmm.
But he let the octopus make that first contact. And I think that's a good place to start. But and maybe I guess I don't know a ton about like the mindset behind conservation and how people go into spaces to conserve that space. But in my head, conservation is like protect it without people and not bringing in more random people that he had in his sea change project or whatever.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, because at the end it's just like, you think
there's like 8 of them.
For me, he's just like, we're all gonna go.
I was like, oh my God, you have your little like diver mafia going in, and I was like, why? You could conserve it and preserve it without adding more people to it.
Well, to be fair to him, because I did like that he did make a point of being like, I didn't just like see the octopus and come swimming up to it, like, get out of your shell and come be my lover. Yeah. Like he didn't do that. But I think he was mindful of trying to be as, nature takes its course mindset, if you will. In particular, when the shark was first attacking it. Because if you remember, he said that he's like, I kind of thought maybe I should intervene because like this is bad. Like this is my baby. Yeah. But then he's like, that's not my place to do that. He's like, if that's what is the destiny of her, the octopus, then so be it. So I'm glad he didn't just like needlessly interfere like that. But at the same time, to your point, Sophia, he is a strange man with a snorkel that's there to touch the octopus. So.
Yeah.
And this is another interesting discussion I kind of wanted to talk about, is the argument of conservation versus preservation. And it's something that was like really big in American politics in like the 1900s with Teddy Roosevelt and everything like that. And it's much different in like when we're talking about like national parks versus like marine biology space, because I feel like those aquatic spaces, especially kelp forests and coral reefs and different things like that, are so like vulnerable to like human interactions and touching, and it just like really messes up those spaces. So I think it's like when you go snorkeling, you do different things like that, they hammer into you like, do not touch anything. Like it is like a serious issue that humans touch coral and it really messes with the space of the environment. So we need to avoid that at all costs. But to the more broad perspective on things, I don't know if you guys know about John Muir and Muir Woods and different things like that, but he had the big perspective of more of a preservation sort of thing, where you have these spaces and we basically just like don't allow humans to go there, and we just like totally prevent any sort of human intervention from these spaces because they're absolutely beautiful spaces. and we need to stop it at all costs. While someone like Teddy Roosevelt, they actually hated each other, even though they had similar ideas.
Mhm.
Where Teddy Roosevelt was much more on the conservation side of things, where it's like, we need to still build infrastructure. We need to still do things like logging and hunting and all these different things to get natural resources out of these places, but still being able to maintain the sort of natural aspect of it. And he took much more that direction. And it's interesting. Like, I guess I don't really know what the better method is, because I think preservation and like being able to be like, all right, we're not allowing human contact with any of these spaces is a little bit idealistic, I think, where we're human beings and we want to see these amazing places and we're curious creatures. And I think it's an amazing thing to be able to like see something like this documentary where I could see a totally new perspective on somewhere in the world, while it may still have an effect on the place that they're filming or doing whatever they're doing. So I think it's hard to draw that line between like, we want humans to see these things and we want these human experiences to show like how beautiful the natural world is, but still protecting it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I hearing it broken down like that, I think that it's better to take more of that John Muir approach of like, don't have people in it, but a little bit of that Teddy Roosevelt of like, people should be able to go into it and they should be able to experience in a way that the prime directive is to help out the animals and make sure that that natural biome is not destroyed.
Yeah.
Because if you're letting people in to like log, or if for some reason you needed the kelp out of the kelp forest, like that would just destroy it entirely. And I don't think that that's useful at all.
Yeah.
But
and there's other factors too in that. Sorry, Sophia. There's other factors too in like things like climate change, where our world is drastically changing, even if we don't touch these places at all. Like, we're still just having an effect on the world as a whole. So we kind of need that human intervention side of things, where we do things like cut down brush or whatever it may be, just to prevent these places from like totally going out of control from an increase in temperature or decrease in temperature, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting hearing you break down the difference, for one, between what'd you say, conservation and preservation.
Yep.
Because that's something I don't think the average bloke, do people say bloke?
Loved that.
I'm not British, but
South African.
Right.
But well,
innate.
I feel like the average bloke, I'm sticking with bloke. I don't think that they often get to hear really people talk about that so much, especially like in layman's terms, where it's like easy to understand, because these are complex issues to have to understand and get. The thing that pops in my mind when I think about what you're talking about, the difference between the two of them, is the size of the land. Because I feel like that has to play a factor, where it's like, okay, how big is this area that you're trying to preserve? Because if it's like the state, like the size of like the state of Texas,
yeah,
and we're like, we don't want any humans ever like to go through this. It's like, okay, but like, this is a freaking huge piece of land. Like, no humans ever. And it's like, well, no,
it's just so hard to regulate too, because you're just gonna have like, I was listening to this podcast, I think it was from the New York Times, and they were talking about how people have been sneaking into the Amazon and logging, but they are so deep in the Amazon that it's like, how would you ever find them unless you like follow them from point A when they start in the city to point B when they're at their final destination in the jungle. Like, it is just so impossible to find these people. So they're able to get away with it because it's just how. And it wouldn't be possible with a space the size of Texas. You couldn't have the park rangers, rolling up trying to stop people.
Yeah. No, I can just tell you real quick on the subject of the Amazon. If you think like I'd bat around butterflies, stick my ass in the Amazon, I will die. Like, I mean, I'm serious. Like, there are bugs, there's snakes, there's huge like mosquitoes that'll like kill me. Like, I would die. I feel like I would die.
I'm right there with you with the snakes, Jordan. I don't believe in them because they don't follow. I have a leg rule, right, with animals.
What does that mean?
Great question. Let me tell you. Animals can have between 1 and 7 legs.
Okay.
That means snakes off the market, off the table. Gross. Where are your legs? Where are they? Why do you move like
why
that?
the legs? Like, why is that?
It's unnatural. It's so unnatural. And then, but then you have 7. Okay. That's a lot.
You
But
know,
like, just kidding. I take that back because my octopus teacher, she had 8, and that's okay.
yeah.
Any more than that is ridiculous. But spiders are enough. They're not there.
Don't you think it would be? Don't you think it would be refreshing to have there be a documentary where instead of like my octopus teacher, it's my dirty, gross mud shark teacher? Because like, I mean, like
I learned how to not be a piece of garbage from this mud shark.
Right. Well, because like, you know, I'm not saying that I like snakes. I'm terrified of snakes, like most people.
Bravo.
And those mud sharks, I wouldn't want to get close to them. They're gross. They eat garbage, and like they're just predators that kill things. But at the same time, it's like you could go to the mindset of it's like all creatures are beautiful on this planet, even the ones that are
We're all God's
disgusting.
creatures.
Right. We're all God's creatures. And the mud shark or the dirty, nasty snake that lives in the Amazon, that's a creature. Should I not love and care for that creature because it's ugly? I mean, well, the answer is yes, but
The answer is yes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting though. They have the leg thing. I've never heard that before.
The
Very
leg,
It's
the
a-
leg, the leg
It's a
rule.
self philosophy that I believe in. Just snakes shouldn't wiggle like that. God, I'm gonna gross myself out thinking about it. Let's move on. That's
Sophia, are you one of those people where like if I were to show you a picture of a snake, you would get uncomfortable? Like you'd be like,
don't even
"Ugh,"
say that.
like,
Don't even
"Ugh."
say that to me. Don't even.
I kind of want to go back to a point of
Yes,
go back to an earlier topic we were
that's
talking
good
about.
because I think
And
Sophia was about to panic if we kept
Back-
talking.
I can feel it on my body.
back to the conservation argument. I
Mhm.
have a distant friend, really, but he's a cool guy, and he's in forestry, and he works for like the state, and he like works with farmers and all different types of people. I'm working just like on land development, land management, and all those different things. And there's so much like science and math now these days, which I think it's valuable, and I'm glad that we're doing that, of like managing how much percentage of land are we dedicating to natural resource extraction, how much percent of land are we being like, okay, we're going to take this area right here and we're going to shut it off, and we're going to just make it a forest and make it a good space. And there's so much math behind being able to determine how much land we should actually preserve, how much land we should use for natural resources, how much land we should like develop, and how much forest we should get rid of too. Because when you talk about like the forest fire argument of like, do we clear out the brush in forests to get rid of forest fires? Because forest fires are basically caused because we stopped them in the first place. So we didn't allow forest fires to happen. I mean, like, there's a good reason we didn't allow forest fires to happen, is because people have houses in these areas, and we don't want like their houses to burn down. So we stop the fires. But then all this brush just builds up because there aren't enough fires. So it's this weird cycle of like, okay, we need to allow fires to happen, but we also need to stop like buildings and everything from being burned down, and whole forests from just being completely gone. And then we also need to think about things like climate change, where these forest fires happen and they're just emitting so much CO2 into the atmosphere. So it's a lose-lose situation in that sense all around. But I think there are smart people out there who know a lot about these sorts of things, and they're doing everything they can to make it so we can preserve as much land as we can while still having our lives and not totally fucking up the planet. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to look at the problem, if I can like air quote it like that, because it's not just a single thing that's making this whole thing be an issue.
Yeah.
I can say on the subject of climate change, which just real quick on this, I just want to clarify this. At what point did it become global warming, and then just they convert the phrase to climate change? Because didn't they both mean like one and the same thing? But then like they're just like, well, global warming is not a cool term anymore. Climate change sounds better. Like,
Well,
like when did that happen? Am I an idiot? Like I don't know.
I think it's because we're able to more fully understand the problem. And I think it's because we're actually are starting to see the consequences of what we're doing, where it's not necessarily like it is as a whole sphere, it is warming up the planet, but like in specific areas in the country, we're not going to see it as that. Like it'll be maybe more monsoons in Southeast Asia. It might be places like more tornadoes in the Midwest and more just extreme weather as a whole. that's more what is happening than necessarily like it's now 10 degrees warmer all the time. It's just like you just have those real extreme temperatures of like some years you have no rain, some years you just have floods all the time. And that's why it's more climate change now, because it's more the climate is changing more so than the globe is actually warming up.
That makes
So
sense.
I'm glad we moved more towards using climate change, and people like railing on it of like, oh, why are we changing these terms, blah 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 blah. But like it is
I
a much,
just didn't know.
it's more
Yeah.
like scientifically accurate term, which is why we're moving more towards saying things like that, because
Yeah, it
we
makes
want
sense.
people have the right information. You have to be really precise with things like this, because
Mhm.
people take things like this to heart, and some of them should, because like their livelihoods are based off things like cattle farming, you know, and like those people are going to
Yeah.
be really upset when they're like, well, no, you can't have as many cows as you have because it's killing the environment. And like if you're
Mhm.
not precise with why things are happening and why these certain events are happening, then they're just going to blow it off and not like consider it at all.
Yeah. And I think that sets a dangerous precedent where if you just shake off enough of it before you know it, it's just going to blow up and be a much bigger problem than it was to begin with.
Yeah.
I've never really understood, like, just like, I mean, even to some people, you bring up climate change and it's like almost like a controversial topic to them where they're like, oh man, like what a hoax. You know,
Yeah.
just woke people like
It
trying
snowed
to.
in January, so it's obviously not warm.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm like, okay, like since when is it like a thing to like why is it a problem to want to take care of the planet?
Yeah.
Like I it's hard for me to wrap my brain around someone that tries to like either be like a denier of it or just not want to talk about it. I'm like, this is not a negative topic to talk about. This is a
No.
positive one. We're
Yeah.
just wanting to protect our home.
Yeah.
mhm.
I don't know. Of
I
course,
think some of it is like every single like political belief and ideology, and that's what climate change is. Like as much as there's so much science behind it, it's still like a way we live our lives and how we
yeah.
live as a society. So it is a political argument, and some people just kind of paint a broad brush with it. I feel like where I feel like you can't just like doomsday climate change and be like you're a shitty person because you do this and this and this, and we're all shitty people. And I think some people kind of just like they narrow it down to those terms, and then when someone else hears that, that's what they hear entirely, and not the part of wanting to take care of the planet. They hear the more like we're gonna shit on the economy, we're gonna make it a terrible place, and it's just such a complicated issue
Yeah.
that I think that's people attack that who don't like climate change. They attack the things that they see as, I don't know, not realistic, maybe. I don't know. But
It's all about framing. I think with any major issue like that, or just even political movement, it's all about how things are framed. And because at the end of the day, people only really care about what they themselves can get out of it. And if you phrase it in a way of like, you are a shitty person, you did such a bad job, now the earth is on fire, idiot.
Yeah.
They're going to feel awful, and they're going to be like, well, yeah, I will throw this plastic bottle straight into the trash. Screw you, you know, like they're not going to try and change it. But it's, if you do reframe that argument to, let's preserve these beautiful places, let's preserve that kelp forest, let's make sure that you can still go to your national parks, then people might open their minds a little bit further.
Yeah, I think you really do have to keep an open mind when you do talk about it, at least in depth anyway. Because too often, like if you see it get talked about on like mainstream media, it's, as Adam said, they paint it with the broad brush. They're glossing over a lot of the details. They're almost missing the point of why it gets talked about. Like usually I feel like one of the things I see when it comes up is people talking about like the debate around using oil over like or using like electric and natural energies over oil, and then you have people that are just like, well, like if you stop using oil, you know how many people you're going to put out of work. The oil industry is huge, you piece of shit. Like like there's I've heard those things, and I'm like, you're kind of missing the point. I mean, yes, if somebody has to lose a job, I mean, to just live a better way of life, I don't really see that as a negative.
Yeah, but I also think there is some merit to those people's arguments too, because I think we don't recognize the fact that I don't think people want to people want electricity. You can't take electricity away from America and not expect like riots and like people in the streets just being like people live in a world now where we have things and we need those things. So having like things like cheap gas and having things like meat that isn't $20. I think meat should be $20, but I mean that's a whole different picture. But people see things in that way, and they're like, I think there is some merit to that of like,
Yeah.
because the people who get hit by that the most are just like poor people who are trying to live their lives, like, and they like, if you make gas $8 a gallon, like,
Yeah.
they're not going to have anything to live for. And like, I understand that we're making we need to make the planet a better place, but like, we are also humans, so we need to like figure out a way to do it where, I don't know. My hope is just that technology gets good enough where we could solve this issue.
That would be good.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what I'm banking on, hoping for at least.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a key aspect of climate justice that's often ignored, is people who are poor, people who are like live in communities that are like positioned, whether that's because of redlining or whether that's just because of like that's what's available, that are more likely to be affected by climate disasters. Often, like.
Well, and often I think there's one. I think there's probably a lot of people when you just talk about economical circumstances where, I mean, it sounds great if I just suddenly say one day, you know what, I'm not going to drive a car anymore. Yeah, that's bad. Oil's bad. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you get to your job? Well, I don't get to my job anymore. No, that's bad.
Yeah.
I got the commute. That's bad. So what are you going to do? Ride a bike. Okay, but then I'm late to my job enough times and now I just got fired. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to feed my children, but I don't want to use electricity. Okay. I like you
and you're a shitty
like,
person. And
yeah,
you're a
like,
shitty person because like you use electricity, man. Like,
yeah, and it's like you see where it goes, where it's like, okay, like if we're just like, I think some people think in terms of like you suddenly stop, as opposed to it being like a gradual thing where it's like it starts with small steps. It's not like I just suddenly sell my car and now I, wear a headband and I have a hiking stick and I have like a peace shirt. Like no, you don't do that. It's a slow, gradual process that takes potentially millions of people to kind of get on board and as they say, do their part. Do either one of you have something that you feel like in a way is like what you do to sort of help, whether it's, I recycle a lot or I don't use this, or I mean, I feel like everybody that's conscious about this subject has like one or two things that they try to put an effort into to help.
I'm really big on reusable containers. I love jars. I'm a big jar person. Jars and just like glass Tupperwares and like always reusing that. We have an organics container in my house, which has actually been really helpful when it comes to trash. Like it reduces our trash waste significantly because we just have like our little organics bag and the bags that we use are biodegradable. So super easy to do that. Recycling like a lot. I don't know, just things like, I mean, that all of that stuff pales into comparison to the amount of times I'm driving my car. So, but still, I mean, it is like you said, those little steps that you just like implement into your life. Trying to carpool with friends when you can.
Yeah. I know. Excuse me. It's actually one thing I've learned from my wife, just from her being from Brazil, is I don't want to say like the negative stigma against like Americans being wasteful, but I'll bring up the negative stigma of Americans being wasteful because there's a lot of just waste that people throw away, or they are just like, well, I have this thing and I could fix it, but fuck it, I'll just throw it away and get a new one. Yeah. You do that enough times, I think that leads to a lot of a problem. And thankfully I've learned from her that there are ways to either go without certain things or reuse certain things that you maybe don't think that you could, maybe reuse. So sometimes it would be nice to see people think along those terms too. I guess if I have to answer the question, I try to not unnecessarily throw things away. That's what I was trying to get at, I guess. Not just throwing trash away for the sake of trash sake. Try to be conscious about that. And recycling too. And I also do really think it's like some of the technology behind that is wild. Like, have you ever seen like one of those things where it's like, this is like a beanie that was made out of pop cans, cool. And you're just like, what? Like that can happen. And yes, it can. I don't know nearly enough about it, but I've seen it. Unless those labels are lying to me, I don't think they would. That'd be an odd marketing ploy, being like, I think people like organic shit, so if we just say this was made out of pop, then they'll buy it.
Well, greenwashing is a huge thing. Like
Wait,
if
what's
you slap,
greenwashing?
thanks for asking.
Oh yeah.
It's when a company like aligns itself with environmental causes or claims to be like, so if the same thing happens, it's called rainbow washing too. It's the same thing happens during like Pride Month, and they align themselves with LGBTQ causes. They're like, we support everybody, and
But it's
like
because they think they're gonna make money off of it, not because it helps.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then they're actively like either in the case of greenwashing, maybe their business practices are actively like harming the environment. Maybe their production harms the environment. Maybe the way that they are, there's just a million other problems within that, but they slap the label on themselves of, we love the environment. We're doing so much work for the environment. Our product is so environmentally conscious. You should buy our product over the other product because we are so environmentally conscious. And it's all a lie.
Yeah. No,
So
that's
be wary.
that is definitely not good.
Yeah.
One more subject I was going to bring up on just talking about waste and the whole last segment of the podcast that we've been doing. I watched this video on YouTube. It's one of those oh my god, I can't think of it. Wired, the magazine Wired, right? They have this segment where they're like, this expert answers submitted questions like over Twitter about whatever their field of expertise is, and they had this person on that's a trash expert. Like that's their job, is like waste disposal and doing it according to the environment and things like that. And one of the things they talked about is how like a place like Amazon is a prime example of a company that should be in a position to like sort of set the world stage by example of like how to make packages and have things just be more eco-friendly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But they don't really do it because
it's not money. It does make money. Why would you do it if it does make money?
No, but yet they have
Jeff
all
Bezos.
the money in the world to send Jeff Bezos to space. So
but if you put that money toward packaging, then he can't have his fun things.
That's
true.
The stock has to go up, guys. It can't not go up.
Yeah. People need to buy things, so we just have to deal with it.
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree with.
I'm 100% kidding for all of the listeners out here.
No, there's actually, I just realized that since we've been talking about all of this is like a whole podcast in and of itself, talking about waste and waste management and things like that. Perhaps that would be that'd be another good episode to do. If I could find
talk about this forever, dude.
Yeah.
Because I think another good thing to do, this is what I do for my green sake, is I never really buy new clothes. Like thrifting is the way to live your life. I feel like I have like 3 pairs of pants that I bought because I'm tall, so I got to have my pants fit or else I'd be made fun of. But like most of my shirts and everything else that I own, like I try to thrift as much as I can, because like just like there's awesome like clothes that people already own, and I kind of like that vibe better as a whole.
I can see that about you. I've seen some of your get up and I'm like, yeah, that's a very Adam outfit. And that's not a bad, and I don't mean that as a dig. It's just like you have a look about you that is very you. And it's definitely not like you said, I don't see you wearing like super flashy stuff. I don't think you're not at all opposed to wearing, as you say, secondhand stuff. When you were saying all that stuff, I can just picture Adam in his car listening to Thrift Shop by Macklemore and like doing like I'm gonna pop some tags and like doing that whole thing. But yeah, that's true.
Grammy award-winning Macklemore, dude. What a guy.
I don't know.
It's better than Good Kid, Mad City. I'll tell you that.
What's Good Kid, Mad City? I don't know what that is.
It was Kendrick Lamar's 2013 album.
Basically, Jordan, there was this big this was the Grammys, so you sort of understand because you're a big Oscar guy.
Yeah,
Oscars. So, but like during the Grammys in 2013, basically there was the Macklemore album that came out, which like I mean like it sold so many records. It was out there. It's not necessarily like I think the music industry doesn't necessarily see it as like a very good album. Like it was just kind of like a pop album about this guy who's kind of weird. And then there was this album called Good Kid, Mad City, which was by Kendrick Lamar. And it's a very it's a beautiful album, but it's not very like listener oriented. It would be like the art film basically at the Oscars, where it's like this like weird movie that not a lot of people have seen. No, I mean like Kendrick,
but the story is there, the impact is there.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar still sold a ton of records, but like it's basically those two fronts and Good Kid or not Good Kid, Mad City, Thrift Shop, and that album won album of the year, and people were just so mad about it because like they're just like, oh my gosh, because it's like basically it's like a Marvel movie.
That's what I was gonna say. It was a Marvel movie beating like an A24.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that because I am not super familiar with that.
But yeah,
okay, so we got a couple minutes left here. I want to do a couple things here. I found this this article on Octopus. It's 10 curious facts about the octopus. It's from the Smithsonian. Apparently they have a magazine, so this appears to be a reputable source. But
incredible.
I want to run down each one of these, get your just quick reaction. Don't think about it too much. Just tell me what you think very quickly.
Love this.
And then I have one more question to ask at the end of it. And again, don't think about it too much. All right. So first, according to Smithsonian Magazine, octopuses are way old. That is what they said. They said the oldest. Well, to clarify, it says the oldest known octopus fossil belongs to an animal that lived some 296 million years ago, which is kind of bananas. They said that specimen belongs to a species named Sofia. I think I'm saying that right. Harmon. What? No, this makes no sense. Harmon Courage describes it as a flattened cow patty, or what? I don't know what that is, but whatever. Sir. Octopuses are way old. Okay. Fact number 2.
Way old. I thought you said whale.
Oh, I was thinking like.
Oh no, whale. Like way no, like just like they're old. Like I thought I said like whale.
That's what I was like. So they descended from whales. Walk me through that. Because,
no, but like
no.
That just reminds me of like Alan Grant, like Jurassic Park. Is like, I think the Velociraptors are descendants of birds. But
that's right.
In SpongeBob, there's an episode where SpongeBob goes back in time and like forward, and there's like a time traveling episode, and he goes back in time into the prehistoric era. And in that episode, there's like an octopus squid thing in the background, and he's supposed to be like a pterodactyl of the time where he like flies away, basically.
Oh, interesting.
So they are old, I guess.
That's crazy. Okay. Did you know that the octopus have 3 hearts? Did we know this?
I did know that.
Oh.
Okay, they have 3 hearts. It's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Where are they at?
They gotta all be in the head, right? Because they can't put them in the legs.
It says
because the legs can get eaten.
Well, it says 2 of the hearts work exclusively to move blood beyond the animal gills, while the third keeps circulation flowing for the organ. So that's the purpose, but that doesn't really say where it's at.
Okay.
This is interesting. The plural of octopus is octopuses. It also clarifies that it's not octopi, octopods, or octopussies. So it's none of those.
Any of these pervs were wondering.
Yeah, just in case. I really like this one right here that says Aristotle apparently thought that octopuses were dumb. It says in his History of Animals, written in 350 BC, he proceeded to write, and I quote, "The octopus is a stupid creature, for it will approach a man's hand if it be lowered in the water, but it is neat and thrifty in its habits. That is, it lays up stores in its nest, and after eating all that is eatable, it ejects the shells and sheaths of crabs and shellfish and the skeletons of little fishes." But he thinks they're stupid. So
I want Aristotle and Craig Foster to have a debate, 1v1, and just see what happens.
That
Aristotle is the stupid one.
Yeah.
This one says octopus arms have a mind of their own, I guess, because it says 2/3 of an octopus's neurons reside in its arms and not in its head. And as a result, the arms can problem solve how to open a shellfish while their owners are busy doing something else.
Astounding.
What?
They're so cool.
They're
so cool.
Wild. Ugh. Did you know that they have blue blood?
Yes.
They have blue blood.
Oh. We have blue blood. Humans do. It's just when it gets released to oxygen.
That oxidizes. Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows that.
I think this is the perfect last fact to end on, is that it says octopuses to some are erotic muses.
To Craig Foster,
Well, it does cite that Japan's notorious for tentacle erotica, which traces back to 1814. They said that they did it on woodblock prints. So like they carved they're like sex drawings of octopus into wood.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's nuts.
I don't know.
Some museum
Culture,
100%
man.
has those.
That would be fascinating to see. I like to talk to the guy that carved it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last question that I had is that if now we already know that the octopus is taken by Craig, he has the love for it. We can't really interfere with that. But if you were to develop an intimate, potentially erotic relationship with a creature, what would it be? Obviously, this is purely hypothetical. This does not like condemn you if you answer, but it's like if you had to get like weird and like, be like, this animal's beautiful beyond like my soul, like what would that animal be?
Jordan,
I know
wanna hear-
Sophia's answers.
I want to hear Jordan's answer before I implicate myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess for myself, I'll just say moose. I've always loved moose. They're my
Kinky.
favorite animal. I don't know if it means I would be like Craig and go like rub the moose, and be like the moose reached out and touched me with its antlers. Like I don't.
Jordan, I could see you like riding a moose like through the wilderness.
That would be amazing. I've never actually seen one in person. That's like on my bucket list. I'd love to be able to see a live moose.
My
Mine
cousins
would
live
be-
in Alaska. They have them on their property sometimes.
That'd be amazing. Adam, what's yours?
Mine would be a giraffe. Did you know, Jordan, that the giraffe, when a male giraffe comes up to a female giraffe in like the mating season, he hits his head against the woman's bodily area
Uh-huh.
so that she pees, and then he drinks the pee to see if she is pregnant or not, or ready to
What?
mate. Yeah.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's real.
That's insane.
So that
Man.
I would pick the giraffe in that sense. Not actually, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, like, what context is everything. We're not saying that we're gonna go out and find giraffes and drink their urine. It's not that. Okay, Sophia, you don't have to answer. It's fine.
I'm gonna rework your question. If I was to make a documentary and become friends with an animal because they're cute little guys, it'd be an otter because they're so cute. Jordan, they lay on their backs and they have their little shells and they crack the shells with rocks. They're so
Yes.
cute. I just want to touch their little whiskers.
Okay.
Ugh.
On that note, we're out of time. I appreciate the both of you coming on. Otters rock. Adam, don't drink
Otters rock.
animal piss, and
I will.
I'll stay away
Or
from
do.
the moose. All right.
Thanks for hosting us, Jordan.
No,
Thank
I
you,
know.
Jordan,
I
yeah.
feel like this was a little rushed because of the Zoom time thing, but we'll
We
do
gotta
this
go.
again. We'll do this again. Okay.
Yes.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone.